Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Musical Talk. My name is Nick Hudson. I'm sitting across from Dominic. Hello, Dominic, how are you?
Hello, Nick. I'm fine, thanks. We don't have a show, do we?
Well, we do. We are creating a show from the depths of something, and we just wanted to have a general natter tonight, really. You know, sit back and have a chilled chit-chat about...
Have a talk about musicals.
Yes, it's what we do, I believe. It's on the...
the clues in the title.
The clues on the tin, isn't it? I want to ask you about... you and I have a lot in common, but one thing we don't have in common is that you're a performer and I'm not. So this is something that you are very qualified to talk about, and that is the art of actually performing. Something which we've kind of missed over the last couple of years, haven't we?
Yes. Well, we had the year where there was very little going on, and then things started to happen. We came back, and then we were pulled. And then last year, thank goodness, I actually had rather a good year last year. I managed to do quite a few shows, but the feeling was, for a lot of regional theatre, there was a huge hope that the pantomime season would go through. I think a lot of the big pantomime companies would survive anyway, but a lot of the smaller companies, they'd managed to get, a lot of them had got grants, some hadn't, unfortunately. But they managed to have grants, which meant that they could have missed the year of 2021 for Panto. So everyone was really keyed up in the business to actually get pantomimes on this Christmas.
And for those of you not in the know, pantomime for many theatres outside of London is the biggest event of the whole year, isn't it? It kind of keeps it afloat. Yes,
it's the bread and butter for a lot of those small regional
and actors
theatres
as well.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, we do. It employs, because obviously, if you're not a big name like myself, except
your name's very long, Don. It's got many letters in it.
But
not as many as mine, but it still has.
Yes. Yes. So there's a lot of the companies. There's a lot of employment for pantomime over Christmas. For American readers, you must have heard of pantomime, I should imagine. But it's usually, we tell stories of Aladdin or Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty. We have one called Dick Whittington, and there's certain tropes which are very traditional within English pantomime. Pantomime used to run from Boxing Day till Easter.
Yeah, so the 26th of December all the way to April, you would...
Yes, whereas now it's usually from November through to...
early January.
Yes. But anyway, the good thing is that a lot of companies went ahead, and for many theatres who, when they get their pantomime season, the revenue they make from that sustains them throughout the year. So having 1 year where that wasn't happening, it was very important that we managed to have that this Christmas in order to get through, to help these theatres survive into this year.
And you were able to do your dream role in a pantomime
I did.
We say this year, it's not this year, it's last year, but it seems like this year, so bear with us if there's a slip of the tongue.
Yes, I got to play Dame, finally. So
now explain what Dame is for those of you.
Dame is...
Because everybody ought to have one.
Yeah, Dame is a character. A pantomime, there's certain characters in all the pantomimes, and the Dame is traditionally a man in a frock. That's a very simplified version of it. But
is it drag?
No, it's not drag. And it is very much a character. It's also not female impersonation. It's somewhere in a kind of weird... knife edge. I don't want to talk too much about the tropes of Dame, because I'm sure there'll be lots of dames listening. Yeah, he's got that wrong. But it's usually it's a matriarchal character, depending on the show. The only exception, usually a good character, with the exception of Cinderella, where there's usually two, which are ugly sisters, but that's a different entity completely. And Wicked Queen in Snow White has sometimes been played as a man playing the Wicked Queen, but that's not really the
You don't
Dame.
really want the Dame to be the villain, though, because you want to welcome the Dame when...
Well, exactly, with the exception of Ugly Sisters, who everyone
Yeah.
loves to boo or whatever. So, but I was doing Dick Whittington, so I was playing Sarah the cook, who is traditionally the Dame in Dick Whittington. And I was doing that in a tiny little theatre in Delft for a wonderful company called The Big Tiny.
Which is a real place and not made up at all.
Well, Delft?
Yes.
Yes. It's in Yorkshire. It was a bit like entering Brigadoon, though. So we did Market Drayton and then we did
Or
Delft.
Schmigadoon in your case.
Schmigadoon, yes. But that was wonderful. Unfortunately, the show had to close.
Like so many other shows. And
We managed to do.
Sadly.
We had 14 performances left. Unfortunately, we had someone in the cast test positive, and the show was pulled immediately. Luckily, nobody was very sick. With the size of the pantomime, we didn't have understudies. I know that a couple of friends of mine were in pantomime and they managed to have understudies, or the dancers or people they knew stepped in and
Man off the Street probably came in.
It was incredible
Because it was amazing at this time on Broadway here and here. Suddenly you have this massive appreciation for understudies, and it must have been very, incredibly warming for all these...
I think it was fantastic. I have one pantomime for a company I worked for before, Polka Dot Pantomimes. They're doing Cinderella in Greys. And I know that the chap playing Buttons got tested positive, and the producers stepped in to play Buttons, which I think was fantastic. So,
proving that, if you can't do it, if you can't beat him, join him, or whatever the phrase.
Absolutely. Well, he was a performer before he went into production. But the fact that they managed to do their whole run, and I saw it, and it was a fabulous show. But it was so nice, and this happened all around the country. There was a lot of understudies going on, and people suddenly being trained and stepping in, and dancers stepping up and learning new roles. And it was fantastic that we managed to get through the season with, I think, quite a few companies closed maybe just a little bit early because of it. But we managed to get through, and that was really good.
The show
news.
must go on.
Absolutely, yes.
That's always been the kind of the mantra through this ridiculous time, hasn't it?
Well, it has, yes. And it was wonderful to be back on stage again. I mean, I had that last year with a play I was in, so it wasn't my first time back since the pandemic, but it was great to be back in a show and singing and dancing again, and just having the audiences was so appreciative, and
doing magic as well, I heard.
we did do.
Yes.
There was a few magic tricks, yes, and some giant puppets as well.
Very
There's
good.
an enormous rat which made everybody scream every night, which was great fun.
Segueing perfectly.
Yes.
It's not technically a musical, but it was the first West End thing that you returned to recently. You and I went to see the Magic Goes Wrong.
Yes.
Done by Mischief Theatre Company.
Had a couple of songs.
It had a couple of songs by the wonderful Steve Brown, who wrote Spend, 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 and I Can't Sing, and all the Spitting Image songs, and lots of other stuff. So it did have but it had the kind of spectacle of musical theatre, didn't it?
Absolutely.
It was very,
Yes.
very funny. And
Yes.
just quickly share your thoughts on that as your kind of first time back in a West End theatre.
Well, it was very interesting because it was a completely different feeling from when I went back on stage after everything. So this was my first time back in the West End. I'd seen a couple of shows since then, so it wasn't my first time back in theatre. But I was a little bit hesitant, but I did feel relaxed, and you just kind of got this feeling that people absolutely just were there for joy and entertainment. And I think we've said this before. We said this during lockdown itself, that people, what they really want at the moment is entertainment. They don't necessarily want huge, hard-hitting drama at the moment. And
The last thing they're after is a litany of woe.
well, yes, and it's also refreshing because we've had a time where everyone has been saturated with TV and streaming and films and television that I myself, I've got a little bit fed up with it. I've kind of gone, do I really want to watch something else?
I had to drag you away from the television just to record this episode, didn't I, Don?
Yes, you did. Yes,
Trying to find something to watch.
It's nice in the middle of a murder mystery. Surprise, surprise. It was a great atmosphere. The audience were loving it, and it's a great show. It's only on to the end of February. I think it's touring, but it's...
But one of the ushers was in the pantomime with you, wasn't she?
Yes,
so
yes.
You got to
yes,
reunite.
Lauren. Yes, Lauren, who works front of house at the Apollo, was actually Alice Fitzwarren in pantomime with me. So that was lovely to see her again. I knew she was there, but I know that she's getting back into the swing of auditioning again, and fingers crossed things will happen and it will get brighter and brighter as it will.
How do you think the audition process or even the acting profession, will it change forever because of what we've been through?
I don't know. I think it's still early days to say that. I think that the audition process, this is just my personal thoughts, and I know a lot of actors who don't...
You should not represent the thoughts of Musical Talk or its various subsidiaries. Thank you.
But this is just my personal thoughts, but I know actors who don't agree with me, and friends of mine who don't agree with me, but it's one of the things I like, is that during lockdown, the first round, apart from the fact that so many thousands more people are going up for each individual job now. So whereas in the past you go up for a role and you may be up against 100 people or something, suddenly that's multiplied to 1,000, and I know that for a couple of shows that I went up for last year, there was one job where somebody said that they'd had 8,000 submissions, and from that 8,000 they chose 50 to recall. So it must be an exhausting process for the producers and casting directors to go through all these tapes. Now, as a performer, I have really embraced and I like self-taping. I don't necessarily get it always right. I think it's a difficult thing. But the wonderful thing about it is that first round, when usually it's a kind of cattle call, you're up against so many people. You're doing the self-tape, you're sending it off, people are watching it. If they're then interested, they get back to you. So it's great because you can let go of it immediately. Once you've done that tape, you can do as many takes as you want until you feel satisfied with it. Whether how people do that, I'm not sure, because some people don't like to do too many takes. However, you're doing a take, it's sent off. If they get back to you and then they're interested and you get round to the second round, they are actually interested in you. And so for me personally, I think it's quite nice, because when you get to the point where you're actually having an interview and you're meeting the producers and performing for them in person, or even like over Zoom,
they kind of know you already, don't they?
They're already interested. So you've actually not had to deal with that kind of rejection, which I think is, it's hard enough being a performer in this day and age anyway, as it always has been.
But forgive me for interrupting. You said something very interesting yesterday. It was something about you can redo it as many times as you want, and you can never get it wrong, the one you've sent, as opposed to if you had one chance in the room.
It's not you can never get it wrong. It's the way I look at it is that because someone said because somebody said to me, if you're doing self-tapes, you get the opportunity to do it right. And I said, actually, you get the opportunity to do it wrong, which is really important, because so many times, and I'm sure every single performer under the sun has done this at some point in their career, regardless of how big they are now, is that you go for an audition and you just mess it up, or you do something and you walk out and you go, oh, why did I say that? Why? And you kind of crumple a bit inside. And other auditions you go in, you just go, I nailed that. And then But the interesting thing about doing self-tapes is that if you get more than one chance, so you actually get a chance to do the really crap one at the beginning. So you get one and you do it and you throw it away and you go, well, okay, right, that's it. So, and there's nobody else looking, there's nobody judging you at that point. So, except for yourself, that can be a double-edged sword, because obviously sometimes you can't.
You get
really
fixated sometimes.
Well, you can't be. Sometimes you can be overcritical of your own self, and sometimes it's horrible just watching yourself back. You go, oh, I'm fat.
Or hearing yourself.
Or hearing yourself, yes, that does.
Listeners, send your feedback on Dom's voice to
No,
feedback
please.
at
Thank you.
musicaltalk.co.uk.
Let's not do that. So that is my personal view of self-tapes. I like them. A lot of actors hate them. I like them because I think it eliminates, for me personally, it.
And have you noticed? I mean, we haven't had long enough, as you said, but has the call for self-tapes increased since the pandemic?
Oh God, yes. I mean, that first year, everything was locked out, was self-tapes. I think even now, a lot of first round is self-tapes, which is quite good as well, because I think a lot of producers can go through self-tapes and they can just go, no, they can listen to a few moments and just think, well, no, that person's wrong, or no, they don't look right, or whatever. And however brutal that is part of this business. And it kind of eliminates a lot of pressure off them. And I've sat on both sides, so I've cast and auditioned people. Sometimes and it's exhausting. It really is. And you're seeing people, and some people come through and they just blow you away and they're magical. But there's a lot of people who come and then I've seen a lot of very bad performers in my in my time. You
also wonder if it might open up a new way of seeing the character.
Yes, indeed. I mean, you've got to. This is again just my personal things, but when you're doing a self-tape, you've got to make strong choices. I mean, you have to make strong choices when you're going for the audition anyway. And sometimes those choices are wrong, but if you're making strong choices, at least they're seeing somebody with an ability.
I had tea at the Theatre or Drury Lane a couple of days ago.
Did you? That was segueing
exactly
perfectly. Oh my God, the seamlessness of that.
I know.
I haven't been yet. I've heard it's fantastic.
It was very nice, and it's just kind of
very expensive.
Expensive, but not very expensive. So I know if you compare it to the prices at sort of the Ritz and the Savoy, they're sort of £80, I would think, whereas this was a cool £49 each for afternoon tea. But you do get a lot of food and some wonderful service, and there ain't many theatres in the West End where you can sit in a grand salon and have afternoon tea with musical theatre themed artwork around you, and musical theatre themed cutlery, and
theatre themed.
Yes, and all the staff, they're all actors and stuff, so they're all very kind of gregarious in their welcoming you. And
it's ghastly.
I know, but it was very, very different. My friend Andrew Abrams, who's over here working on his musical of But I'm a Cheerleader, which I'm sure we'll be talking about in the future on the podcast, he wanted afternoon tea, so I thought, right, I'll take him to the most perfect place to have afternoon tea. We paid for our meal. This isn't an advert. I'm just saying it's a fun, different place to go if you want a kind of fancy British afternoon tea.
Yes, I mean it's become one of the places to go, hasn't it, at the moment? And you said they've done this marvellous thing to where they used to have the bins.
Yes, it's called Bin Alley or Bin Pan Alley or something like that. If it's not called Bin Pan Alley, it certainly should be. It's now a kind of outside but inside secret garden bar with vines draping everywhere and kind of candles, and it's just beautiful.
So they've really done. They've really made it into a venue rather than just a theatre.
It's open from 9 o'clock in the morning for you to have breakfast, lunch, tea, dinner, drinks, cocktails.
And can you just wander in and have a look around?
Just wander in and have a walk around. It's wonderful. There's no box office anymore.
Really?
That's gone.
How do you get tickets?
All the staff have portable machines on them, and
they don't have the box office anymore. But that box office was iconic.
Yeah, the whole theatre was completely ripped up from the ground and started again.
Well, I hope not.
Well, that's what happened.
I shall go and have to have a look.
It just looks stunning. It really is a complete palace now for
theatre.
For theatre, and you've got this beautiful kind of stone, even though they're not stone, but they look stone, kind of etchings of Showboat and My Fair Lady, and you've got the is it Cecil Beaton? Was that the costume designer for My Fair Lady?
Yes.
You got the Cecil Beaton bar with all his kind of artwork on the walls, and you've got just the most amazing sheet music on the wall, and pianos littered everywhere, and
Pianos littered everywhere.
yes, and it's just
Excuse me while I step over that upright organ.
it's I beg your pardon. It was just an absolutely delightful place to go, and somewhere very different. Before I dragged Andrew to see Back to the Future
For the 100th time, isn't it?
for the 100th time. Yes, that's what I saw recently. You're getting your way back into performing, which is good.
Yes.
And you're about to do adult pantomime, aren't you?
I am. Very exciting. Yes, Coldham.
No, you're not.
So I'm doing Coldham productions of Aladdin Me in Basildon. It is an adult pantomime, which means that it is extremely offensive. So if you are offended easily, don't go. And as Luke said, the good thing is we probably offend everybody, but there's representation in of every group in the cast itself. So, but it is an adult panto. It's meant to be offensive. It's very funny. It's got a lot of unoffensive.
Where do you draw the line?
Panto
Or
gags.
is there no line?
There's no line drawn here. I'm probably not the right person to ask, but there are probably certain lines that are drawn that you don't go down.
And you are playing, are you allowed to say?
I'm playing the Emperor.
Okay. Does
So-
this Emperor have a name?
No, he's just the Emperor of Fuking.
Okay. And when and where is that, should our listeners wish to?
It's at the Mirren Studio. So we open on the 15th of March and we run to the 27th of March.
Okay.
It's at the Helen Mirren Studio at the Towngate Theatre in Basildon.
Lovely. She's got a studio named after her now. That's
Yes,
good.
indeed. It
Not
is
the Dame Helen Mirren studio.
I should say that it is an adult pantomime and
Yes.
is unsuitable for under 18s or anyone who is easily offended and anyone with a nervous disposition.
Ooh, how
It
fun.
is. It's a wonderful cast, and it's going to be great fun. There is everything from flying, and wonderful sets and costumes, and it has
sets, listeners.
well, it does have sexual content
Okay.
and in it, but I saw the production of Blow White a few years back, and it was hysterically funny. And a lot of adult pantomimes, you'll go on and you'll see it, and it's just a cheap gag because they're just swearing or saying names of sexual organs every now and again. Whereas Luke is brilliant because there's plenty of jokes in this which are straight out of panto. So there's lots of things that are not just adult as well. There's great songs. I can't tell you what they are at the moment.
Okay.
Because some things change. But that's happening. It's going to be great fun, and it's
Probably will
very
be
funny.
furiously rewritten to get all the new Boris references in and things.
There are. I have a routine where I am doing an address of the nation, which, if I can pull it off, I'd like to do a Boris impersonation, but we'll see what happens.
Good.
Now, I thought it'd be quite interesting to talk about the few shows that we know are coming in 2022 that we might be excited about that are not on at the moment.
Yes.
So we've mentioned But I'm a Cheerleader, which is I'm very excited about seeing. And that's going to be at the Turbine Theatre, isn't it?
Yes, in Battersea.
In Battersea, yes. Turbine Theatre, not the easiest place to get to, but
It looks lovely.
Yes.
From what Andy's told us about the show, it sounds really, really good.
yes.
There's a little live band as well, which is exciting, and the cast look very, very good indeed. I saw the workshop of that show a couple of years, 2018, I think it was, with Carrie Hope Fletcher in it.
And did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it very much.
Was it the first act?
Yes, it was the first act, and I didn't know the film, so it was the whole story was new to me, and I think it's a, obviously very relevant piece. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes down. On the complete opposite end of the scale, we've got My Fair Lady going into the London Coliseum.
Hurrah! It's the
Lincoln Centre production.
Oh, fantastic! Which was lauded immensely, wasn't it?
I think so, yes. I've seen a couple of videos of the set, which I'm excited about, and also the massive orchestra we're going to get, which would be lovely.
Well, that'll be fantastic in the Coliseum to actually have a full orchestra.
Yes.
So, yes, that will be wonderful to see. So we got that, and then also Anyone Can Whistle, which is very, very rarely seen, and that's going to be going on at Southwark Playhouse. And I think very exciting that is. So I saw an amateur production. I was so eager to see it. I saw an amateur production about 100 years ago, and I enjoyed it. It was good to see. It was good to see a show that's hardly ever done. So, but this will be great to see a proper production of it. Professional production.
We've got Anything Goes returning. Of
Anything
course.
Goes,
They just
indeed.
And re-announced their cast.
With Dame Bonnie Langford.
Dame Bonnie Langford, Sir Simon Callow.
Sir Simon Callow.
And Dame Kerry Ellis is in it as well.
Fantastic.
What
And Dennis
else?
Lawson as well from
Yes.
Pal Joey and Mr. Cinders.
Dame Dennis Lawson. And we've also got Beauty and the Beast coming to the
Beauty
London
and the Beast.
Palladium this summer, the touring production, which I won't lie, I'm looking forward to seeing. At the Dominion now, Dirty Dancing is just going to make its way into there, and then Grease is going to follow it.
Okay.
The Curve Lester production of Grease, which I probably will enjoy seeing. A friend of mine is playing Sandy, which is lovely. We've got My Fair Lady, which you mentioned, and that's kind of all that's
We've
known.
got the Great British Bake Off, the musical.
Yes, the Great British Bake Off, the musical, by our friends Jake and Pippa. Do you see it working as a musical? Did you watch Bake Off and think...
I've never seen Bake Off in my life because it was... I know people are going, that's ridiculous, but because I was out of the country for so long, and then when I came back, I didn't really have a television. So I never really watched it. So I'm aware of its huge cult status. It's not even a cult status, it's huge status. Yeah. And I can't see it not working. I think you can make musical out of anything, really.
There'll be a song called Soggy Bottom in it, I'm sure.
I'm sure there will. That was one of my lines from pantomime, actually.
Speaking of cult classics, Bonnie and Clyde had its concert run at the Drury Lane.
Is it? It's been and gone.
It had a one-night performance, and then they used that to announce we're actually bringing this as a full production to the West End.
I see. That's what's happened with it.
So fans of Frank Wildhorn will probably enjoy that. It doesn't really appeal to me, but I'm sure...
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard the cast album. I had a friend who saw it in the States when it was on and said it was one of the most wonderful things he'd seen on stage. I'm not a huge Frank Wildhorn fan. I do like the Scarlet Pimpernel. I'm not a great fan of Jekyll and Hyde, I have to say, but I love the Scarlet Pimpernel. I love the Scarlet Pimpernel.
The Pimpernel?
Yes, I can't even say it. I hope you do lots of editing on this.
Probably.
Yeah.
We got Oklahoma coming to the Young Vic.
Is it the Oklahoma, the one they had on Broadway recently?
Oklahoma, yes.
It's Oklahoma.
The modernised one set in the dining hall, which I would be quite curious to see. Apparently it's a 2019 production. Says it was very radical. And that's kind of all we know for the moment. And we're only in 12 days into January, so I think that's... should be
12 days into February.
12 days into February, even. God, the time has flown since I started this podcast. It's looking quite exciting.
I think so, yes.
Better than last year.
And then, well, yes, absolutely. And there's bound to be lots of new shows being tried out. And I hope that a lot of the smaller theatres in London come back and make their mark again. The other palace is ramping up again, isn't it? Beginning again. We got the Turbine, and hopefully other things will happen.
Good.
So, yes.
Apparently, Groundhog Day is coming back this year or next year.
Is it?
Which I'm looking forward to seeing again because
you saw it at the Old Vic, didn't you?
Yes, we recently just had Groundhog Day, so I listened to the musical in its honour. That's probably enough for this week, Dom.
Okay.
Thank you, Dom. We'll speak to you soon. Until then, stay safe.
Au reservoir.
Au reservoir, à bientôt, and Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Musical Talk. To find out more about the world of musical talk, you can visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk, where you'll find all our episodes, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Musical Talk.